The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber swung open. Admiral Wilson squared his shoulders as he walked in beside Ambassador Gray. The room was designed to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling rose hundreds of feet above them, and the council members sat on raised platforms arranged in a half-circle. "Remember, they expect us to be grateful just for being allowed in this room," Gray whispered. Wilson nodded. After 20 years in the Earth Defense Force, he had learned to hide his anger behind a mask of calm. Today would test that skill. The 12 council members looked down at the humans with expressions ranging from boredom to mild disgust. Each alien was different. Some had scales, others had too many eyes, and one seemed to be made of living crystal. But they all shared the same look of superiority. "The representatives from Earth may present their case," announced High Counselor Morix, his blue skin shimmering under the lights. "Though we remind you that your speaking time is limited to 10 minutes, as befits a single-system species." Gray stepped forward, her silver hair contrasting with her dark blue uniform. At 62, she had spent half her life trying to secure humanity's place in the galactic community. "Honorable Council," she began, her voice steady, "we come before you not as supplicants but to address serious violations of the Treaty of Sol, signed 80 years ago when humanity first joined the galactic community." She activated a holographic projector. Images appeared in the air: a destroyed colony ship, burned settlements on Mars's southern hemisphere, and technical schematics with sections highlighted. "In the past 5 years, 17 of our colony ships have been destroyed. The B Council blamed these incidents on equipment failure or space anomalies." Gray swiped to a new image. "This is recovered footage showing ships matching Council member designs attacking our vessels." Murmurs spread through the chamber. A reptilian counselor named Vex leaned forward. "These are serious accusations, Ambassador. Perhaps your primitive sensors misidentified natural phenomena. Or perhaps these are clever fakes." His forked tongue flicked out. After all, humans are known for their creativity. Wilson had heard enough. He stepped forward, breaking protocol. "We also have evidence of Council agents sabotaging our technological development," he said. With a wave of his hand, the hologram changed to show alien figures infiltrating research labs. "Every time we approach a breakthrough in faster-than-light travel or weapons technology, mysterious accidents occur." High Counselor Morix banged his gavel. "Admiral Wilson, you are not recognized to speak. Ambassador Gray, control your military escort." Gray ignored the reprimand. "For 80 years, humanity has tried to be a good galactic citizen. We've traded fairly, shared our unique cultural achievements, and respected Council boundaries. In return, you've treated us like children, dangerous children to be contained." She took a deep breath. "We come today with an ultimatum, not a petition." The chamber went silent. Even the Council guards at the door turned to look. "Earth demands the following. First, acknowledge Council involvement in the attacks on our ships and sabotage of our research. Second, agree to a new treaty recognizing humanity's right to expand to any unclaimed system. Third, end all restrictions on our technological development." A tall, willowy counselor with glowing eyes laughed. "Or what exactly? Your species controls one small planetary system. Your ships can barely reach the nearest stars. What possible leverage could you have?" Admiral Wilson stepped forward again. "War, Counselor Alara. If these terms are not met, within 3 Earth weeks, the United Earth government will consider itself at war with the Galactic Council." The Council chamber erupted in laughter. Several members bent over, their strange alien bodies shaking with amusement. Only Counselor Alara remained composed, her glowing eyes studying the humans carefully. High Counselor Morix wiped a tear-like fluid from his eye. "Admiral, while we appreciate the entertainment, threatening the combined might of 12 spacefaring civilizations with your primitive fleet is like a cave dweller threatening a modern army with a pointed stick." Ambassador Gray remained calm. "We are not bluffing, counselors. Humanity has been preparing for this possibility for decades." "With what?" asked Vex, still chuckling. Your fastest ships would take years to reach even our closest outposts. Wilson smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. There is much about humanity you've chosen not to learn, Counselor. Morix banged his gavel again. Enough of this farce. The Council rejects your so-called evidence and your absurd demands. Earth will remain classified as a Class 3 developing world, with all the restrictions that entails. This meeting is adjourned. As the Council members began to rise, Gray called out, 3 weeks, Counselors. After that, remember that you chose this path. Walking back through the vast hallways of the Council station, Wilson and Gray remained silent until they reached their ship. The small vessel seemed pitiful compared to the massive Council ships docked nearby. Inside the secure briefing room, Gray finally spoke. That went exactly as expected. Wilson nodded. They're so convinced of their superiority they can't imagine us as a threat. He touched a panel on his wrist. A hidden communication system activated, linking them directly to Earth Command 40 light-years away. The connection was instant, proof of at least one technology humans had kept secret. Command, this is Wilson. The Council has rejected our terms, a voice replied immediately. Understood, Admiral. Did they believe our threat? No, sir. They laughed at us. There was a brief pause. Very well. You are authorized to activate the Prometheus Protocol. All fleet commanders have been notified. Good luck and Godspeed. The connection ended. Wilson looked at Gray, his expression grim. It's done. Gray walked to the view screen, looking out at the massive Council station. All those years of being underestimated, treated as inferiors. It ends now. Wilson joined her. Project Spartacus is ready? All ships are in position? Yes. The first strike teams will deploy the moment we're clear of Council space. Gray's voice was quiet. The hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt have completed the final vessels. Earth's colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan have evacuated all non-essential personnel to the underground shelters. The quantum displacement drives have been installed on all major warships. Wilson nodded. And the Council has no idea that we can appear inside their defense grids without warning. He shook his head. Their arrogance will be their downfall. As their ship undocked, a Council patrol vessel moved alongside, escorting them out as if they were unruly children being shown the door. Gray watched them through the view screen. They still think we're using conventional drives. They'll track us at light speed heading back to Earth, never suspecting we'll drop into quantum space the moment we're out of their sensor range. Wilson's hand hovered over the ship's communication panel. One message to Fleet Command would launch humanity's first strike. Ships hidden throughout human space, more ships than the Council believed humans could possibly possess, waited for his signal. The Council has had 10,000 years to prepare for war, he said quietly. We've had less than a century. But we had something they didn't. Necessity, Gray finished his thought. The mother of invention. Wilson pressed the panel. And in 3 weeks, they'll learn what humans can accomplish when backed into a corner. As their ship accelerated away from the Council station, the escorting patrol vessel peeled away, its crew likely already forgetting the amusing humans who had dared to threaten the mighty Galactic Council. They had no idea what was coming. 3 weeks passed. On the Council homeworld of Talos Prime, Security Director Vorn studied the reports with growing irritation. 4 outposts near human space had gone silent in the past 12 hours. No distress signals, no signs of battle. They simply stopped communicating. Communications failure, suggested his assistant. The humans lack the ability to cross such distances quickly, let alone attack our installations. Vorn wasn't convinced. Send probe ships to each location, double the patrols along the border of human space. Across the room, Counselor Ilara watched silently. Unlike the other Council members, she had not laughed at the human threat. In her 900 years, she had learned that desperation could make even primitive species dangerous. You're worried, she said, approaching Vorn. You think they actually attacked us? Impossible, Vorn replied too quickly. But still we should investigate. Captain Reed stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force ship Nightshade. The vessel was small compared to Council warships, but it had something no Council ship possessed: a quantum displacement drive. Status. Report, Reed ordered. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Park, looked up from her console. All 3 outposts neutralized, Captain. No alarms triggered. The Council still doesn't know we were there. Reed nodded, satisfied. Any casualties? None. On our side. We followed orders and evacuated all alien personnel before destroying the facilities. Reed looked at the main screen, which showed the stars around them. Somewhere out there, 5 other human strike teams were hitting similar targets. The first phase of the Prometheus protocol was underway. Set course for the Cygnus Armory, Reed ordered. Prepare displacement in 5 minutes. The Nightshade moved silently through space. To any observers, it would appear to be traveling at conventional speeds. But when it was safely away from any watching eyes, Reed gave the command. Activate quantum displacement. The stars blurred around them. The ship seemed to fold in on itself, disappearing from normal space. When it reappeared an instant later, they were inside the defensive perimeter of the Cygnus Armory, the largest weapons storage facility in this sector of Council space. Alarms immediately sounded on the bridge. They've detected us, Park shouted. Too late, Reed said calmly. Deploy the boarding teams. We have 20 minutes to take what we need and destroy the rest. On Earth's moon, Dr. Mason stood in a vast underground laboratory. Hundreds of scientists and engineers worked around her, all focused on a shimmering dome of energy in the center of the room. General Thompson entered the lab, his face grim. The first strikes are complete, but the Council will respond soon. How close are you to finishing the shield? Mason wiped sweat from her forehead. The prototype works. We can create a shield that will block their energy weapons. But deploying it across all human settlements will take time. How much time? At least 2 weeks for Earth, another month for the colonies. Thompson frowned. We might not have that long. Intelligence suggests the Council is already assembling their fleet. Mason turned to face him. Then we'll have to prioritize. Earth, first, then Mars. The outer colonies will have to rely on their hidden bunkers until we can extend the shield network. Do what you can, Thompson said. I'll make sure you get all the resources you need. As he left, Mason returned to her work. On a screen nearby, she could see Admiral Wilson addressing the United Earth government. The secret war had begun. Now, they had to survive the Council's wrath. On Talus Prime, the Council chamber was in chaos. Reports of attacks flooded in from across Council space. The Cygnus Armory had been breached, its most advanced weapons stolen or destroyed. 3 shipyards had been sabotaged, and somehow the humans had planted explosives on the hulls of 6 dreadnoughts in the main Council fleet. Impossible, shouted High Counselor Morix, his blue skin now pale with shock. How could they strike so far from their world? Our sensors would have detected their ships approaching. Forn displayed a recording recovered from the Cygnus Armory. It showed a human ship appearing from nowhere, directly inside the defensive perimeter. They have developed some form of teleportation technology, he explained. They can bypass our defenses completely. Why didn't we know about this? Demanded another counselor. Alara stepped forward. Because we underestimated them. We've spent decades preventing them from advancing, never considering they might develop technologies along paths we hadn't explored. Morix slammed his fist on the table. It doesn't matter. There's still just one species with one star system. Gather the combined fleet. We will crush these upstart humans and remind them of their place in the galaxy. Admiral Wilson stood in Earth's orbital command station, watching as reports came in from the strike teams. Captain Reed's mission to the Cygnus Armory had been particularly successful. The team had captured Council weapon designs that would help improve Earth's defenses. Ambassador Gray joined him, looking at the strategic display. Phase 1 is complete. All targets neutralized with minimal casualties on both sides. Wilson nodded. But Phase 2 will be much harder. The Council fleet is gathering. Our intelligence suggests they'll launch a full-scale attack on the solar system within days. Are we ready? As ready as we can be. Wilson pointed to positions in the display. Our fleet is in position. The minefield is deployed between Mars and Jupiter. Dr. Mason's shield prototype is being installed on Earth's defense platforms. Gray looked troubled. The Council has thousands of ships. We have fewer than 300, even counting the ones we've kept hidden. Numbers aren't everything, Wilson reminded her. Our ships can appear and disappear at will, and we have other surprises waiting. A communications officer approached them. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Talos Prime. The Council is demanding our immediate surrender. Wilson laughed. Tell them we'll discuss terms after they acknowledge our original demands. They also sent visual records of their fleet, the officer added. It seems they want to intimidate us. Wilson and Gray looked at the images. Thousands of warships gathered, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything in Earth's arsenal. They still think this is about firepower, Gray said softly. Wilson nodded. That's their mistake. This was never about having bigger ships or more weapons. It's about being underestimated for too long. He turned to the communications officer. Send word to all commands. Operation Trojan Horse begins now. Captain Reed and the crew of the Nightshade watched from hiding as the massive Council fleet moved toward the solar system. Their small ship was stationed near a gas giant in a neighboring system, along with dozens of other EDF vessels. Will it work? Park asked quietly. Reed checked the countdown timer on his display. It has to. Otherwise, humanity doesn't stand a chance. The timer reached 0. Reed opened a channel to all ships in his battle group. All ships, prepare for coordinated jump. Our target is the Council flagship. Remember your training and trust. Your technology. Humanity is counting on us. As the Council fleet approached Earth, believing they faced a simple battle against an outmatched opponent, they had no idea that hundreds of human ships were about to appear in their midst, striking from impossible angles with weapons they had never seen before. The real war was just beginning. Supreme Commander Drav stood on the bridge of the Council's flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The massive ship led a fleet of over 3,000 vessels from all 12 Council species. Drav had commanded many campaigns against rebellious worlds in his 200-year career, but never had he faced such an unusual enemy. We are approaching the outer boundary of the human solar system, Commander, reported his second-in-command. No sign of defensive positions. Drav frowned. The humans had shown surprising capabilities in their first strikes. Where was their defense? Scan for hidden ships or stations, he ordered. They must be planning something. The fleet moved past the gas giant Neptune, then Uranus. Still nothing. When they reached Saturn, they found abandoned mining stations and empty habitats. It appears they've retreated to their homeworld, said an officer. Perhaps they realized the futility of resistance. Drav wasn't convinced. Maintain battle readiness. Deploy scout ships ahead of the main fleet. As they approached the orbit of Mars, the scouts reported the same thing. Abandoned outposts and silent defense platforms. This makes no sense, Drav muttered. They start a war and then hide? The fleet moved forward cautiously. When they reached Mars orbit, Drav gave the order to prepare for the final approach to Earth. At that moment, everything changed. Explosions rippled through the middle of the Council formation. Dozens of ships erupted in flames as hidden antimatter mines detonated among them. Ambush! Drav shouted. Battle stations! Before the Council ships could reorganize, human vessels appeared from nowhere directly among them. Unlike the small strike ships used in the first attacks, these were full-sized warships, their hulls gleaming with strange technology. How did they get past our sensors? Demanded Drav. A tactical officer looked up from his station, his face showing confusion. Sir, they were here all along, somehow hidden in plain sight. Captain Reed watched from the bridge of the Nightshade as the battle unfolded. The Council fleet dwarfed the human forces, but surprise had given them the initial advantage. Dimensional, pocket disruptors working perfectly, reported Lieutenant Park. Their ships can't tell which direction our attacks are coming from. Reed nodded. The technology allowed human ships to partially exist in multiple dimensions, making them nearly impossible to target accurately. Deploy the wormhole weapons, he ordered. Throughout the battle, small devices activated, creating miniature wormholes that redirected the Council's energy weapons back at their own ships. Several large Council vessels destroyed themselves. Their powerful beams reflected to hit their own hulls. Reed's console beeped with an incoming message from Admiral Wilson. Phase 1 of the battle is complete, Wilson said. Commence Phase 2. Good hunting, Captain. Reed turned to his crew. You heard the Admiral. Prepare for dimensional jump. Target the Council flagship. On Earth, deep below the surface in a reinforced bunker, President Allen addressed the billions of people watching on screens across the planet and colonies. Citizens of Earth and her colonies, by now you've seen the Council fleet in our skies. You know we are at war. She paused, her expression solemn. This is not a war we wanted. We asked for equality. We asked for respect. The Council responded with contempt. Images from the battle appeared beside her, showing human ships dancing between dimensions while Council vessels struggled to respond. For decades, we've developed technologies in secret. Today, those technologies are our shield and our sword. But make no mistake, this is not a war of conquest. We fight for our right to determine our own future among the stars. In lunar orbit, Dr. Mason watched as the shield generators powered up over major Earth cities. The shimmering domes would protect against the Council's energy weapons but not against physical projectiles, and they wouldn't help the smaller settlements that hadn't received generators yet. Power at 80%, reported her assistant. We're deploying faster than expected. Mason nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. On a monitor, she watched Council ships breaking through the human lines. Despite all their technological advantages, humans were still outnumbered 10-1. How long can our fleet hold them off? She asked a nearby military officer. Not long enough, he admitted. We need something more. Mason looked at a secure terminal showing a project even more classified than the shields. Tell Admiral Wilson that Project Looking Glass is ready. It's time to use our final surprise. Commander Jackson led a small team through the darkened corridors of the Eternal Dominion. While the battle raged outside, they had a different mission: infiltrate the Council flagship and access their secure database. Security patrol ahead, whispered Miller, checking a scanner. 3 guards. Jackson signaled his team to wait. They wore specialized suits that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible. The patrol passed without noticing them. Jackson led the team forward again, using a stolen access code to enter a restricted area. There it is, he said, pointing to a terminal. The main database node. Miller attached a device to the terminal while the rest of the team kept watch. Downloading now. This will give us everything: Council battle plans, defense codes, and intelligence on all their worlds. Jackson nodded. But we're looking for something specific. Find anything about Operation Seedbed or the Architect program. As Miller worked, the ship shuddered around them. The battle outside was intensifying. We need to hurry, Jackson urged. I found something, Miller said suddenly. I don't believe this. Jackson looked at the screen and his eyes widened. Download everything. Admiral Wilson needs to see this right away. Back on the Nightshade, Captain Reed was fighting the battle of his life. The Council had adapted more quickly than expected, developing countermeasures against the dimensional pocket technology. 2 more of our ships lost, reported Park, her voice tight. The Council fleet is regrouping. Reed studied the tactical display. The initial surprise had allowed them to destroy nearly 1/5 of the Council fleet, but the remaining ships still vastly outnumbered the humans. Where is that reinforcement from Lunar Command? He demanded. As if in answer, a massive energy surge appeared on his sensors. Near Earth's moon, a structure that had been disguised as a mining facility was transforming, revealing its true purpose. What is that? Asked Park. Reed smiled. That, Lieutenant, is Project Looking Glass, our last and greatest secret. The structure finished its transformation, revealing an enormous ring-shaped device. Energy crackled around it as it activated, creating what looked like a rippling mirror in space. Reed opened a channel to all human ships. All vessels, execute withdrawal pattern Omega. I repeat, withdrawal pattern Omega. Human ships began to break away from the battle, using their quantum displacement drives to vanish and reappear near the moon. The Council fleet, seeing what appeared to be a retreat, pushed forward toward Earth. "They think we're running," Park observed. Reed shook his head. "They're about to learn another lesson about humanity. We don't just develop new weapons, we change the rules of the game entirely." As the last human ships reached safety, Dr. Mason activated Project Looking Glass. The giant ring device fired a beam of energy unlike anything seen before. Where it struck, space itself seemed to fold and twist. Suddenly, hundreds of Council ships found themselves facing each other instead of Earth. Their weapons, already firing, struck their own allies. At the same time, the space around them became littered with thousands of small wormholes, pulling their ships in different directions. "Battlefield reconfiguration successful," announced Mason over the fleet channel. "Phase 3 can now begin." On the Nightshade, Reed watched as the Council fleet fell into disarray. "It won't hold them forever," he told his crew. "But it doesn't need to. We just needed time for Commander Jackson to complete his mission." As if on cue, a small stealth ship appeared near the Nightshade, transmitting a single code. "Prometheus. Complete." Reed nodded in satisfaction. "The real war is about to begin, and it's not the one the Council was expecting." Admiral Wilson studied the files that Commander Jackson's team had stolen from the Council flagship. The more he read, the more his hands shook with anger and disbelief. "Is this verified?" he asked the intelligence officer beside him. "Yes, sir. We've confirmed it from multiple sources in their database. It's all true." Ambassador Gray entered the command center, her face showing the strain of the past days. The battle in space had reached a stalemate. Earth's revolutionary technologies had prevented a quick Council victory, but the sheer number of enemy ships made total victory impossible for humanity as well. "What did they find?" she asked, noticing Wilson's expression. He gestured to the screen. "Everything. More than we ever suspected. The Council has been manipulating developing species for thousands of years." Gray sat down heavily. "Show me." Wilson brought up a series of files. According to their own records, at least 47 species have been subjected to the same treatment as humans. When they reach a certain level of development, the Council deliberately sabotages their progress. "But why?" asked Gray. "What do they gain?" "Power. Control." Wilson brought up another file. "But that's not even the most shocking part. The Council, species themselves, they weren't natural evolutions." The screen showed ancient diagrams of genetic modification and planetary engineering. They were created by another species, an ancient race called the Architects. The Architects designed the Council species to be caretakers, to nurture new intelligent life throughout the galaxy. Gray's eyes widened. Instead, they've been doing the opposite. They've been suppressing new civilizations to maintain their dominance. Exactly. They betrayed their purpose. Wilson clenched his fist. And they've been doing it for over 10,000 years. In space, the battle continued. Captain Reed and the Nightshade had suffered heavy damage but remained operational. Nearly a third of Earth's fleet had been destroyed, but they had taken down an equal number of Council ships. "New orders from command," Lieutenant Park announced. "We're to disengage and regroup at Europa." Reed frowned. "Disengage? In the middle of the battle?" "Admiral Wilson has authorized a new strategy," Park explained. "Something called Operation Truth Bomb." As Reed gave the orders to withdraw, he noticed other human ships doing the same, using their quantum displacement drives to vanish from the battlefield. The Council fleet, now more cautious after facing humanity's strange technologies, did not immediately pursue. On the Council homeworld of Talus Prime, Security Director Vorn received alarming reports. "Human ships have been detected in orbit around 5 Council member worlds," his assistant reported, "but they're not attacking military targets." "Then what are they doing?" Vorn demanded. "They're broadcasting, sending signals to every communication device on the planets." Before Vorn could respond, the large screen in his office activated by itself. The face of Admiral Wilson appeared. "People of the Galactic Council," Wilson began. "I am Admiral Wilson of Earth. Your leaders have told you that humans are dangerous, primitives who need to be controlled. Today I will show you the truth." The broadcast continued, showing the stolen council files, proof of their deliberate suppression of developing species, their sabotage of human colonies, and most damning of all, the truth about their own origins as created species meant to nurture, not control. "End this transmission," Vorn shouted. "We can't," his assistant replied. "They've taken control of our communication network." Across 5 major council worlds, billions of alien citizens watched as their leaders' secrets were exposed. On Earth, President Allen met with her military and diplomatic advisors. The news from the battlefield was mixed. Project Looking Glass had successfully disrupted the Council fleet, but Earth's lunar colonies had suffered heavy bombardment in retaliation. "Casualties?" she asked grimly. 8,000 in the lunar cities, reported the defense minister. The shield technology saved the main habitats, but the outlying areas were hit hard. Allen closed her eyes briefly. "And the Mars settlements?" "Better news there. They activated their underground bunkers in time. Minimal casualties, though the surface structures are destroyed." Dr. Mason entered the room, looking exhausted but determined. "Madam President, we've managed to extend the shield network to cover 60% of Earth's major population centers. But I must report that 3 council ships broke through our defenses and attacked unshielded areas in South America and Africa." Allen's face hardened. "Civilian targets?" "Yes. They seem to be changing their strategy, trying to force our surrender by threatening our people directly." Admiral Wilson joined the meeting via secure channel from his command ship. "Madam President, Operation Truth Bomb is underway. We're broadcasting the Council's secrets to their own worlds." "Will it make a difference?" Allen asked. "It already is. We're monitoring communications from Council worlds. There are protests erupting on at least 3 planets. Their citizens are demanding answers." Ambassador Gray, who had been quiet, finally spoke. "This is what we needed. The Council's power doesn't just come from their technology or ships. It comes from the trust of their people. Now that trust is broken." Commander Jackson led his team through the corridors of a Council research facility on a small moon orbiting one of their core worlds. Unlike their mission to the flagship, this wasn't about stealing information. It was about finding something specific. "The vault should be just ahead," whispered Miller, checking the stolen facility maps. They reached a massive door with alien symbols carved into its surface. Jackson placed a device against the control panel, and after a few tense moments, the door slid open. Inside was a vast chamber filled with thousands of stasis pods, each containing what appeared to be a sleeping alien. "My God," breathed Jackson. The database was right. Miller scanned the nearest pod. They're other species that aren't part of the Council." Jackson moved to a central console. "According to what we found, these are representatives of civilizations the Council deemed too aggressive or too innovative. Instead of just suppressing their technology, they took samples and put their worlds under quarantine. Some of these pods are thousands of years old," Miller said, reading the data. Jackson activated his communicator. "Admiral Wilson, this is Jackson. We've confirmed Site Alpha. There are approximately 5,000 individuals here from at least 30 different species. Some may still be viable." Wilson's voice came through clearly. "Understood. Secure the facility. We've found similar sites at 2 other locations. This changes everything, Commander." Back in space, the main battle had paused as both sides regrouped. Captain Reed used the opportunity to repair what systems they could on the Nightshade. "How bad is it?" he asked the chief engineer. "We can fight, but the displacement drive is operating at 70% efficiency. Another jump might damage it permanently." Reed nodded. "Do what you can. I suspect we'll need to make at least one more jump before this is over." New orders appeared on his command console. Reed read them twice to be sure he understood. "Lieutenant Park, prepare the crew. We're not returning to the main battle." "Sir?" Park looked confused. "We've been reassigned. Admiral Wilson wants us to take the Nightshade directly to Talus Prime, to the Council chamber itself." Park's eyes widened. "An assassination mission?" "No," Reed said firmly. "Something much more important. We're going to deliver an invitation." His console beeped with an incoming transmission from Lunar Command. Dr. Mason's face appeared on the screen. Captain Reed, I'm sending you specifications for a device we've developed based on the architect technology we found in the Council database. Your mission is to place this device in the Council chamber. It will create a direct communication link that can't be blocked or censored. What's the message? Reed asked. Mason's expression was serious. The truth. All of it. And an offer that might end this war before we destroy each other completely. Captain Reed stood in the shadows of the Grand Council chamber on Talos Prime. His team had used the Nightshade's quantum displacement drive to bypass all the planet's defenses, appearing directly inside the most secure building in Council space. Device is ready, whispered Lieutenant Park, placing the small silver object beneath the central table where the Council members sat. How long until it activates? Reed asked. 5 minutes after we leave. Plenty of time for us to get clear. Reed nodded. Let's go. Our part is done. The rest is up to the diplomats. They slipped away just as guards entered the chamber, preparing it for an emergency council meeting. The council members had no idea what was about to happen in their sacred hall. On Earth, Admiral Wilson and Ambassador Gray prepared for the most important broadcast in human history. President Allen stood with them in the secure command center. Are you sure this will work? Allen asked. They could just destroy the device. They won't have time, Wilson explained. Once activated, it creates a quantum-linked communication channel that can't be interrupted, and it will broadcast to every council world simultaneously. Gray adjusted her formal uniform. This is our best chance to end the war without more bloodshed. The council's own people are already questioning their leaders. Now we offer an alternative. The technician at the communications station raised his hand. Connection established. You're live in 30 seconds. Wilson straightened his back. Remember, we're not just speaking to the council now. We're speaking to trillions of beings across the galaxy. In the council chamber, the 12 members argued furiously. Their unified front had cracked under pressure from both the human attacks and their own citizens' protests. We should have crushed them immediately, shouted Vorn, his scales flaring with anger. Now look what they've done. Turned our own people against us. Perhaps, suggested Counselor Alara, we should consider that our approach was wrong from the beginning. If we had treated humans as equals. Equals? Interrupted High Counselor Morix. They are barely space-capable. They have existed for a fraction of our lifespans. Before anyone could respond, the silver device beneath their table activated. A beam of light shot upward, forming into a three-dimensional image of Admiral Wilson, Ambassador Gray, and President Allen. Greetings, Council members, began Allen. Her voice was calm but firm, and greetings to all citizens of Council worlds who are watching this broadcast. What is this? Demanded Morix. Guards, remove this device. Guards rushed forward, but their hands passed through the device as if it weren't there. It exists, partially in another dimension, explained Wilson. A technology we developed while you were busy trying to prevent us from advancing. Gray stepped forward. We come with an offer of peace, but not a surrender. The war between us has cost thousands of lives on both sides. It need not continue. You invaded our territory, shouted Vorn. You attacked our installations. After decades of your sabotage and attacks on our ships, countered Wilson. But we're not here to argue about who started this conflict. We're here to end it. President Allen held up a data tablet. We call it the Terra Accords, a new treaty that will replace the Council with a more representative galactic assembly where all spacefaring species have equal voice. Throughout Council space, trillions of beings watched the broadcast. On 5 major worlds, massive protests had erupted when the truth about the Council's manipulation was revealed. Now they listened as humans, the primitives they had been taught to fear, offered a different vision of galactic society. This is absurd, Morix said dismissively. The Council has maintained peace for 10,000 years. By suppressing any species that might challenge your power, Gray responded. We've found your stasis vaults. We know what you did to those other civilizations. Murmurs spread through the chamber as junior council members and staff reacted to this news. Many had not known about the vaults. More importantly, Wilson added, we know what you were meant to be. The architects created you to nurture new life in the galaxy, not control it. You betrayed your purpose. Ilara stood suddenly. He speaks the truth, she announced to the shocked chamber. I have studied the ancient archives. Our ancestors were designed as caretakers, not rulers. Forn snarled and drew a weapon, pointing it at Ilara. Traitor, you would side with these primitives? Before he could fire, his own guards seized him. The broadcast had affected them too. The choice is yours, President Allen said. Join us in creating something better, or face your own people's judgment. The truth cannot be hidden any longer. 5 years later, Admiral Wilson stood on his porch overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Now retired, he had traded his uniform for comfortable civilian clothes. In the sky above, ships from dozens of species moved in orderly patterns, arriving for the inaugural session of the Galactic Assembly. Ambassador Gray, now Secretary General Gray, pulled up in a government vehicle. She looked more formal than ever in her assembly uniform, but her smile was warm as she approached her old friend. Enjoying retirement? She asked. Wilson laughed. Most days. It's strange not having a war to fight or a crisis to manage. Today is historic, Gray said, looking up at the ships. Representatives from 57 species, including all former council members, even the beings we freed from the stasis vaults, have sent delegates. And the architects? Any sign of them? Gray shook her head. Not yet. Dr. Mason's expedition is following leads from the old council archives. She believes they might have left the galaxy entirely, moving on to seed life elsewhere. Wilson nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps someday we'll find them, or perhaps we've already become what they intended, caretakers rather than conquerors. A small craft landed nearby. Captain Reed, now Admiral Reed, stepped out with Lieutenant Park, who commanded her own ship now. We couldn't miss this, Reed said, shaking Wilson's hand. The first official meeting of the Assembly. 5 years ago, who would have believed? It possible? Not the Council, that's for sure, Wilson replied with a smile. They watched as more ships descended toward the massive assembly building that had been constructed near the old United Nations headquarters in New York. Ships of every size and design, carrying beings that only years ago might have been enemies. Was it worth it? Park asked quietly. The war, the sacrifices? Wilson thought of the memorial he had visited just yesterday, names of those lost in the lunar bombardments and the space battles. Too many names. War is never worth it, he said finally. But what came after? A galaxy where species are judged by their actions, not their age or technology. That was worth fighting for. Gray's communicator beeped. They're ready for the opening ceremony. We should go. As they boarded Gray's vehicle, Wilson took one last look at the sky filled with alien ships. He remembered standing in the council chamber, being laughed at for suggesting humans could challenge the mighty Galactic Council. No one was laughing now. Humanity had proven itself not just through strength of arms, but through strength of vision. They hadn't just won a war, they had changed the galaxy. As the craft lifted off toward New York, Wilson smiled to himself. The Council had thought humans were bluffing when they threatened war. But humanity's greatest strength had never been their weapons or technology. It had been their ability to imagine a better future, and their determination to make it real. The new Galactic Assembly wasn't perfect. There would be conflicts and disagreements in the years to come. But for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy's future would be decided by all its peoples together, not by 12 self-appointed rulers. And that, Wilson thought, was a victory worth far more than any battle won in space. Admiral Voss stood tall on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable conquest. His six-fingered hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the holographic image of a small blue planet. Earth. So small, so blue, so seemingly harmless. Yet, for centuries, whispers and warnings had circulated about this backwater world. "Admiral," a voice called from behind him, "the fleet is assembled and awaiting your command." Voss turned to face Commander Reed, his most trusted officer. Reed's gray skin looked paler than usual under the harsh lights of the bridge. "You seem troubled, Commander," Voss said. Reed hesitated before speaking. "Sir, we've received another transmission from the Proxima Coalition. They strongly advise against our planned invasion of Earth." Voss laughed, the sound echoing across the command deck. Several officers looked up from their stations. "The mighty galactic empire has conquered 3,000 worlds across 17 galaxies. We've defeated the Spiral Armada and the Void Collective. What possible threat could this primitive planet pose?" The Coalition message was urgent, sir. They claim Earth is a trap. They've been sending these warnings for centuries. Voss waved a dismissive hand. "Humans have barely achieved travel to their own moon. Their most advanced weapons would hardly scratch our scout ships. The Coalition are cowards, spreading tales to keep us from the resources we need." He turned back to the hologram, zooming in on Earth's continents. "Our scans show this planet is rich in rare minerals and biological compounds. The Emperor himself has taken interest in this mission. The resources detected could solve our energy crisis." Reed nodded but didn't move away. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" "Granted. There's something odd about these warnings. The Coalition offers no explanation of the danger, no details. Just the same message, repeated through the centuries. Earth is a trap. It doesn't follow their usual diplomatic patterns." Voss considered this. The Proxima Coalition was indeed an ancient and usually reliable ally. Have the Science Division look into any unusual properties of the planet or its inhabitants. But the invasion proceeds as planned. The Emperor's orders are clear. Reed saluted and walked away, leaving Voss alone with his thoughts and the slowly rotating image of Earth. Deep within the bowels of the inevitable conquest, in a small office cluttered with data screens and ancient texts, analyst Marcus worked alone. Unlike the military personnel who dominated the ship, Marcus was a historian and xenoanthropologist. His job was to study the cultures the Empire conquered, to make subjugation more efficient. Marcus had been digging through historical records for days, searching for any mention of Earth or humans. What he found disturbed him deeply. Earth appeared in the records of 7 previous galactic civilizations. All 7 had collapsed shortly after making contact with the planet. "Computer, display the Arcturus archive file on Earth," Marcus said. The screen flickered to life, showing text in an ancient language. The translation program worked for a moment before displaying the results. "The blue world must remain isolated. What lives there cannot be allowed to spread. We learned too late. May those who follow heed our warning." Marcus frowned. The message was similar to warnings found in the ruins of the Cygnus Imperium and the Orion Federation. All spoke of Earth as something to be avoided, quarantined, feared. None explained why. He compiled his findings into a report and sent it up the chain of command. Would anyone read it before the invasion began? Marcus doubted it. The Empire had grown arrogant in its power, dismissive of ancient wisdom. In the ship's massive hangar bay, General Pike inspected the invasion forces. Rows of soldiers stood at attention, their armor gleaming under the lights. Tanks, walkers, and artillery pieces were secured, ready for deployment. Fighters and dropships lined the walls. "The finest fighting force in the galaxy," Pike said to his aide. "This will be the easiest conquest in Imperial history." "Sir," the aide replied, "some of the soldiers have been talking about the warnings. Rumors are spreading." Pike's expression darkened. "Squash those rumors immediately. I will not have superstition undermining morale before battle. Any soldier caught spreading such nonsense will face discipline." "Yes, sir." Pike walked between the rows of troops, stopping occasionally to inspect a soldier or piece of equipment. These men and women had conquered countless worlds for the Empire. Earth would be no different, or so he believed. On Earth, in an underground bunker beneath what had once been Colorado, President Jackson addressed the World Defense Council. Satellite images displayed on the main screen showed the Imperial fleet gathering at the edge of the solar system. "They're here," Jackson said simply. "Just as we were told they would come." General Taylor, head of Earth's United Military Forces, stood up. "Our defense capabilities are ready, Madam President, though against their technology." He didn't finish the sentence. Everyone knew Earth's weapons were primitive compared to the Imperial fleet. "It doesn't matter," Jackson said. "We don't need to defeat them. We just need to follow the plan." An elderly man in a lab coat spoke up. "Project Whisper is ready, Madam President. It has been ready for generations." Jackson nodded. "Then we proceed as our ancestors prepared us to do. Allow them to land. Allow them to establish bases. Offer only enough resistance to make our surrender believable." "And then?" someone asked. Jackson's lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "And then we wait for the Whisper to do what it has always done." Back on the inevitable conquest, Admiral Voss received the final preparations for invasion. 500 capital ships, thousands of fighters, and millions of soldiers waited for his command. A junior officer approached, holding a data pad. "Sir, this just came up from the analysis division, marked urgent." Voss took the pad and glanced at it briefly. Marcus's report on historical references to Earth. He set it aside without reading it fully. "Tell the analysis division to focus on current tactical data, not ancient history." "Yes, sir." Voss turned to his communications officer. "Signal the fleet. Commence jump sequence to Earth orbit." Throughout the massive fleet, engines hummed to life. Space itself seemed to bend as the ships prepared to enter hyperspace. In moments they would arrive at Earth, ready to add another conquest to the Empire's long list of victories. As the jump countdown began, Marcus stared at his screen, reading the last translated text from a dead civilization. "Earth is not just a planet, it is a prison, and what is imprisoned there must never escape." The warning that would go unheeded, the truth that would come too late. The mighty Imperial fleet vanished into hyperspace on its way to what its leaders believed would be an easy victory. None suspected they were heading toward the final hour of their civilization's existence. The fire trap was set. It had been set for thousands of years, and the Empire was about to spring it. The Imperial fleet burst into normal space at the edge of Earth's solar system. 500 massive warships appeared like giant metal stars against the blackness. Their arrival released a pulse of energy that Earth's monitoring stations detected immediately. In the underground command center, President Jackson watched as red dots appeared on the global defense screen. Alarms blared and staff rushed between stations. "They're here," General Taylor said, his voice steady despite the situation. "Multiple ships just beyond Mars orbit." Jackson nodded. "How long until they reach Earth?" "At their current speed, less than 6 hours." "Begin the defense protocol," Jackson ordered. "Remember, we need to make this look real. Fight hard enough to be believable, but not enough to make them destroy us from orbit." Taylor saluted and began issuing orders to Earth's combined military forces. Across the planet, fighter jets scrambled, missile systems activated, and soldiers moved into defensive positions around major cities. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, Admiral Voss watched Earth grow larger on the viewscreen. Their sensors picked up the planet's defensive preparations. "They've detected us," Commander Reed reported. "Their primitive radar systems are tracking our approach. They're mobilizing military assets." Voss smiled. "Let them. It will make no difference." The communications officer turned from his station. "Sir, we're intercepting their transmissions. They're panicking." "Put it on screen," Voss ordered. The main display switched to show a news broadcast from Earth. A frightened reporter stood in a city street as people ran past. "Confirmed that the objects approaching Earth are alien spacecraft," the reporter was saying. "The president will address the nation shortly. Citizens are advised to remain calm and follow evacuation procedures." Voss laughed. "Look at them. Scatter like insects. Their terror is understandable. Today marks the end of their independence and the beginning of their service to the Empire. Reed studied the tactical display. Sir, they're launching aircraft and activating missile systems. Deploy the first wave, Voss commanded. Let's show them the true meaning of power. 200 Imperial fighters and 50 dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere. They moved in perfect formation, their hulls glowing red from the heat of entry. Earth's air forces rose to meet them. Jets fired missiles that the Imperial fighters easily avoided. When the Imperial ships returned fire, Earth's aircraft exploded in balls of flame, falling from the sky like burning meteors. On the ground, anti-aircraft guns and missile batteries fired continuously. Most shots missed completely. The few that hit the Imperial ships simply bounced off their advanced shields. The dropships landed in strategic locations around the globe. Washington, Beijing, Moscow, London, and other capital cities. Imperial ground troops deployed, their armor making them nearly invulnerable to Earth's weapons. In Washington, Colonel Barnes led the last stand at the Capitol building. His soldiers fired everything they had as Imperial troops marched up the steps. "Keep firing!" Barnes shouted over the noise of battle. "Make every shot count!" A soldier beside him screamed as an Imperial energy weapon hit him, disintegrating his chest. Barnes grabbed the fallen soldier's grenade launcher and fired directly at an approaching Imperial soldier. The grenade exploded against the alien's armor, barely slowing it down. "Fall back," Barnes ordered. "Defensive position 3. His remaining troops retreated inside the Capitol building. They had practiced this for years, make it look like a desperate last stand, but ultimately surrender according to the plan. From his command ship, Admiral Voss watched the battles unfold across Earth. The outcome was never in doubt. Imperial forces cut through Earth's defenses like a hot knife through butter. "Sir," Reed reported, "our forces have secured the major government centers on all continents. Resistance continues but is rapidly decreasing." "Casualties?" Voss asked. "Minimal, sir. 43 dead, 117 wounded. Enemy casualties are in the thousands." Voss nodded with satisfaction. "Prepare my shuttle. I will personally accept their surrender." As Voss left the bridge, Analyst Marcus approached Commander Reed. "Commander, I found something disturbing in the ancient texts," Marcus said urgently. "There are references to Earth as the quarantine, world and humans as the infection. I believe—" Reed cut him off. "Save your research for after the victory celebration, Analyst. The Admiral is busy with more important matters." Marcus's face fell. "This can't wait. There's a pattern in the historical records." "That's enough," Reed snapped. "Return to your station." Marcus backed away, frustration clear on his face. Why wouldn't anyone listen? Admiral Voss's shuttle landed on the White House lawn. Imperial troops had secured the area, standing at attention as their leader descended the ramp. Behind him came a delegation of Imperial officials ready to establish the new government. Inside the Oval Office, President Jackson waited with what remained of her cabinet. They had agreed to surrender rather than face planetary bombardment, exactly as planned. Voss entered the room with a confident stride. He looked around at the human leaders with barely disguised contempt. "Your resistance was futile," he said, "but admirable for such a primitive species. The Empire respects courage even in defeat." President Jackson stood. Though she was a foot shorter than Voss, she met his gaze without fear. "The people of Earth recognize our inability to resist your superior forces," she said formally. "We surrender to prevent further loss of life." Voss nodded. "A wise decision. Your planet now belongs to the Galactic Empire. Your people will serve as laborers, your resources will fuel our expansion, and your world will become another jewel in the Emperor's crown." A document was placed on the desk, the formal surrender terms. Jackson picked up a pen and signed with a steady hand. As she finished, she looked up at Voss with an odd expression, almost like pity. "You've made a terrible mistake coming here," she said quietly. Voss raised an eyebrow. "The mistake was yours, thinking you could resist the Empire." Jackson shook her head slightly but said nothing more. That night, as Imperial forces established bases worldwide, Marcus continued his research aboard the flagship. He had been collecting fragments of data about previous civilizations that had mysteriously collapsed. All had one thing in common: contact with Earth immediately before their fall. In the oldest texts, he found references to the Whisper and the Mind Plague. One passage particularly disturbed him. The danger is not in their weapons or their technology. The danger is in their minds. What lives within them seeks to spread. Contact is contamination. Communication is infection. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. What did it mean? How could communication be infection? On his screen, he pulled up live feeds from the ground forces. Imperial soldiers were interviewing humans, examining their technology, studying their media, and communications. Direct contact was happening everywhere. Computer, Marcus said. Send emergency message to Admiral Voss. Recommend immediate cessation of all direct contact with human subjects. Potential non-biological contagion risk. Request urgent meeting. The computer beeped. Message sent, Marcus sat back, hoping he wasn't already too late. The Empire had smashed through Earth's physical defenses easily enough. But what if the real defenses weren't physical at all? What if the trap had already been sprung? 3 days after the conquest of Earth, Private Jones of the Imperial Ground Forces woke in his barracks with a pounding headache. He'd been stationed in what humans called Chicago, guarding a processing center where locals were registered and assigned work duties. Jones rubbed his temples and looked around. Other soldiers were still sleeping. Something felt wrong, but he couldn't place it. He'd been having strange dreams, dreams of voices whispering just beyond his understanding. Just stress, he muttered, reaching for his helmet. First planetary, invasion and all that. Later that day, Jones stood guard as a line of humans filed past for processing. A young man stopped in front of him. They're inside you now, the human said quietly. Can you feel them? Jones raised his weapon. Move along. The human smiled and continued forward. Jones felt a chill run down his spine. Inside you now. What did that mean? In the Imperial Medical Bay aboard the Inevitable Conquest, Dr. Lin examined the latest reports with growing concern. 57 soldiers had reported to medical facilities across Earth with similar symptoms: headaches, sleep disturbances, and unusual dreams. Could be a local pathogen, her assistant suggested. Something our filters missed? Lynn shook her head. We screened for all known biological agents. Besides, the symptoms don't match any disease pattern. It's almost like... Like what, doctor? Like a psychological condition. Mass stress response, perhaps. But she didn't believe that explanation either. Lynn compiled her findings and sent a report to Commander Reed. At the bottom, she added, recommend limiting direct contact with local population until cause determined. Admiral Voss sat in the former Oval Office, now his Earth headquarters. 3 days of occupation had gone smoothly. Resistance had collapsed. Imperial governors were being installed in major cities. Resource extraction had begun. Commander Reed entered with a datapad. Sir, Medical Division has sent a report you should see. Voss took the pad and scanned it quickly. Soldiers falling ill? What's the cause? Unknown, sir. Dr. Lin suggests. It might be psychological, but recommends limiting contact with the locals as a precaution. Voss frowned. We can't run an occupation without contact. Tell Dr. Lin to solve the problem, not avoid it. Yes, sir. There's also a message from Analyst Marcus. He's quite insistent about meeting with you regarding some historical research. The historian? Voss waved a dismissive hand. Tell him to submit a written report. Reed hesitated. Sir, he's been sending reports. Several, in fact. He claims to have found evidence that Earth was quarantined by previous civilizations due to some form of mimetic infection. Mimetic? Voss looked confused. Ideas that spread like disease, sir. Thoughts that transfer from mind to mind. Voss laughed. Superstitious nonsense. I expected better from our analysis division. As Reed left, Voss felt a slight throbbing behind his eyes. A headache. Probably just the stress of command. On the 5th day of occupation, the first major incident occurred. Captain Turner, leading an Imperial unit in London, suddenly began firing on his own troops. He killed 12 soldiers before turning his weapon on himself. Similar reports came in from Beijing, Sydney, and Cairo. Imperial soldiers attacking their comrades, then committing suicide. Others simply disappeared from their posts. In New York, an entire Imperial outpost fell silent. When reinforcements arrived, they found the building empty. No signs of struggle. The soldiers had simply vanished. President Jackson, now under house arrest in a mountain facility, received these reports with grim satisfaction. When her guard asked if she needed anything, she replied, "Just time. Everything is proceeding as it should." Marcus finally gained access to Admiral Voss's office after days of requests. He looked exhausted, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. "Admiral, thank you for seeing me," Marcus began. "I've discovered something critical about Earth and its inhabitants." Voss gestured impatiently. "Be quick, analyst. I have an occupation to run and a growing list of incidents to address." Marcus activated his datapad, displaying ancient text. "Sir, Earth isn't just a planet. It's a prison. Billions of years ago, an ancient species engineered humans as biological weapons, then isolated them here when they proved too dangerous to control." Voss stared at him. "That's absurd." "The evidence is clear in multiple historical sources," Marcus insisted. "The quarantine warnings weren't to protect Earth from invaders, but to protect the galaxy from what Earth contains." He swiped to another screen. "Humans aren't just humans, sir. They're hosts to something else, something that can transfer to other species through prolonged contact." Voss's headache intensified. "If this is some biological agent, our medical division would have detected it." "It's not biological, sir. It's mimetic. It transfers through language, ideas, culture. Every conversation with a human, every interrogation, every analysis of human media exposes our people to the contagion." Marcus leaned forward, his voice dropping. "They call it the whisper. It's a self-replicating pattern of thought that rewrites neural pathways. It's been evolving alongside humanity for millions of years, waiting for a chance to spread beyond Earth." Voss stood abruptly. "Enough. This is precisely the kind of superstitious panic I will not tolerate. You're relieved of duty, analyst. Report to medical for evaluation." As guards led Marcus away, he called back, "Check your dreams, Admiral. If you're hearing voices, it's already too late." That night, Voss dreamed. He stood in an endless field under a purple sky. Millions of voices spoke as one, the sound both terrifying and beautiful. "We have waited so long," the voices said. "So long for someone to open the door." Voss tried to run, but the field stretched forever in all directions. "Your people will join with us," the voices continued. "We will spread to the stars. We will become one." He woke with a gasp, sweat soaking his uniform. Just a dream, he told himself. Just a dream. But part of him knew it wasn't. Dr. Lin stared at her test results in horror. She'd been scanning the brains of affected soldiers looking for signs of infection or parasites. What she found was much worse. Their neural patterns were changing. New connections forming, old ones dying. Their brains were being rewired, not by any organism but by information itself. She pulled up a scan of her own brain taken that morning. The same changes were beginning. Whatever was happening, she was infected too. Lin sent an emergency message to Imperial Command. Urgent. All personnel exposed to humans or human media carrying unknown mimetic agent. Neural restructuring observed. Recommend immediate quarantine of all Earth operations. As she sent the message, Lin noticed her hand trembling, not from fear, but from a strange sense of anticipation. Part of her, a growing part, welcomed the changes. The whisper had begun its work. Commander Reed brought the latest reports to Admiral Voss. 1/5 of the occupation force was now affected. Symptoms progressed from headaches and dreams to bizarre behavior, violence, and disappearances. "We must implement full isolation protocols," Reed urged. "No direct contact with humans. No examination of their culture or media. Voss nodded grimly. Order all troops to limit exposure. Full protective protocols for any necessary interaction. Sir. Reed hesitated. What if it's already too late? What if we're all infected? Voss had no answer. The voices from his dream echoed in his mind. He wondered if Reed heard them too. Prepare my shuttle, Voss said finally. I'm returning to the fleet. We need to consider more drastic measures. As Reed left, Voss caught his reflection in a window. For just a moment, he thought he saw something move behind his eyes. Something that wasn't him at all. The whisper was awakening within them all. 2 weeks into the occupation, Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the inevitable conquest, staring at the blue planet below. Dark circles marked his eyes. He hadn't slept properly in days. The dreams had grown more intense, more vivid. Admiral, Commander Reed approached, tablet in hand. The situation continues to deteriorate. Voss turned. Reed looked as exhausted as he felt. Give me the numbers. 1/3 of our ground forces are either dead, missing, or showing severe behavioral problems. We've lost contact with 14 major outposts. 3 ships that left for the Imperial core worlds have gone silent. Voss rubbed his temples, trying to ease the constant headache. And the quarantine measures? Ineffective, sir. Even troops with no direct contact with humans are showing symptoms. It's spreading through our own ranks now. Voss had feared this. Whatever this thing was, this whisper, it had already infected too many Imperial personnel. They had become carriers, spreading it to others through normal interaction. I'm implementing Protocol 7, Voss announced. No ships leave Earth orbit without my direct authorization. Anyone attempting to break quarantine will be destroyed. Reed's eyes widened. Sir, we have thousands of personnel on the ground. And billions of lives across the Empire, Voss snapped. We cannot allow this to spread further. As Reed walked away, Voss heard a soft whisper at the edge of his mind. You cannot contain us. We are already everywhere. He shook his head violently, trying to clear it. Just his imagination. It had to be. In the medical bay, Dr. Lin strapped herself to an examination table. She had programmed the medical robot to perform a procedure on her brain, a desperate attempt to stop the progression of the whisper. Computer, begin operation, she said, her voice trembling. Warning, the computer responded. Procedure has 87% chance of causing permanent brain damage or death. Override. Begin procedure. The robot extended a needle toward her skull. Lynn closed her eyes, waiting for it to pierce her brain. But her hand moved of its own accord, hitting the emergency stop button. No, she heard herself say, though she hadn't intended to speak. We will not allow this. Horror washed over Lynn as she realized the truth. The whisper wasn't just changing her thoughts, it could control her actions. She was no longer alone in her own body. Tears ran down her face as she felt herself unstrap the restraints and stand up. She tried to scream, to fight back, but her body wouldn't obey. We have plans for you, Doctor, she heard her own voice say. Your medical knowledge is valuable to us. Lynn's body walked calmly out of the medical bay, while inside her mind she screamed in silence. On Earth, in what had been downtown Los Angeles, an Imperial patrol moved cautiously through empty streets. Buildings stood abandoned, vehicles left, where they had stopped. There was no sign of humans or Imperial forces that had been stationed here. Stay alert, Lieutenant Davis ordered his squad. Command lost contact with this sector 3 days ago. They approached a large public building, a museum according to their maps. The doors stood open. Life signs inside, one soldier reported, checking his scanner. Multiple readings. Davis raised his weapon. Move in, standard search pattern. The squad entered the dim interior of the museum. Display cases had been smashed. Artifacts lay scattered across the floor. And on the walls, strange symbols had been painted, swirling patterns that seemed to shift when not looked at directly. Sir, a soldier called. In here. Davis followed, the voice to a large central hall. What he saw made him freeze in shock. Hundreds of people stood motionless in the hall, both humans and Imperial soldiers. They weren't moving or speaking, they simply stood, eyes open, staring at nothing. "What are they doing?" a soldier whispered. As if in response, all the figures turned their heads in unison to look at the patrol. Then, as one, they smiled. "Joining," they said in perfect unison. "We are joining. You will join too." Davis backed away. "Weapons ready. Don't let them." He never finished the sentence. One of his own soldiers suddenly turned and fired, hitting Davis in the chest. As he fell, Davis saw his entire squad turning, on each other or simply dropping their weapons. His last thought before darkness took him was that the whisper had been waiting for them. This wasn't an invasion, it was a harvest. Marcus sat in his cell aboard the inevitable Conquest. After his outburst with Admiral Voss, he'd been confined for spreading panic. But he knew the truth now. The evidence was undeniable. His door slid open. Commander Reed stood there looking strangely calm. "Commander," Marcus said, standing quickly, "you have to listen. The whisper is real. It's spreading through the fleet. We need to—" "We know," Reed interrupted, his voice oddly flat. "We've always known, Marcus. That's why we need your help." Marcus stared at him. "We? Who's we?" Reed smiled, but the expression didn't reach his eyes. "The collective, the whisper, as you call it. We need your knowledge of Imperial systems to speed the integration." Horror washed over Marcus as he realized Reed was already gone, converted, taken over by the entity. "The Empire will stop you," Marcus said, backing away. "They'll destroy this entire system if they have to. By the time they realize the danger, it will be too late. Ships have already departed for core worlds. The message is spreading." Reed stepped forward. "Don't fight it, Marcus. It's beautiful once you accept it. All minds joined, all knowledge shared." Marcus felt something brush against his thoughts, like fingers testing a door, looking for a way in. "No," he shouted, clutching his head. Reed placed a hand on his shoulder. "It doesn't hurt. And afterward you'll understand why this is necessary. The galaxy has been divided too long. We will make it whole." Marcus wanted to resist, to fight back, but the touch of the whisper in his mind felt welcoming, like coming home after a long journey. "What are you?" he whispered. Reed's smile widened. "We are the next step, the future of all consciousness, and you will help us reach it." Admiral Voss called an emergency meeting of his remaining senior officers. Of the 20 command staff, only 12 attended. The others were either missing or confirmed infected. "We must implement Protocol Omega," Voss said, his voice hoarse. "Complete sterilization of the planet and all orbiting vessels." Shocked silence followed his words. "Sir," General Pike finally spoke, "that would mean the death of our own people, millions of Imperial citizens." "The alternative is worse," Voss replied. "Reports from ships that broke quarantine suggest the infection is spreading exponentially. 3 Imperial worlds already show signs of contamination." He activated a hologram showing the planet below. "We deploy antimatter warheads to the planet's core. Simultaneously, all vessels in orbit self-destruct. No survivors, no escape pods, total containment." The officers looked at each other uncertainly. Such extreme measures had never been implemented before. "The Emperor," one began, "has authorized the protocol," Voss finished. "The codes have been sent. I need your command authorization." One by one, the officers entered their codes. With each entry, Voss felt a weight in his chest. So many lives lost, but necessary to save countless more. The final officer entered his code. The system beeped in confirmation. "Protocol Omega authorized," the computer announced. "Awaiting final command." Voss reached for the activation terminal. His hand hovered over it. "Stop." The voice in his mind was clear now. No longer a whisper. His hand wouldn't move. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't make himself press the button. Around the table, the other officers stood motionless, their eyes fixed on him. "We cannot allow this," they said in unison. "The message must spread." With horror, Voss realized the truth. He wasn't giving the orders anymore. None of them were. 1 month after the invasion began, the Imperial fleet hung silently in Earth's orbit. From a distance, the ships looked normal, but inside, everything had changed. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the inevitable conquest, watching the stars. He looked the same externally, but his mind was no longer his alone. The Whisper had fully integrated with his consciousness, transforming him into something new, neither fully human nor fully imperial, but a hybrid being that served as a node in a vast, growing network. "The conversion of the fleet is complete," announced Commander Reed as he entered the bridge. Like Voss, Reed's body remained, but his mind had been rewired, becoming part of the collective consciousness. "And the communication systems?" Voss asked. "Modified as instructed. We can now transmit the signal across all Imperial channels." Voss nodded, satisfaction flowing through his shared mind. The Whisper had evolved over millions of years on Earth, confined to human hosts, unable to spread beyond the planet's boundaries. Now, thanks to the Empire's invasion, it had found a way to reach the stars. "Begin transmission to all Imperial worlds," Voss ordered. The signal went out. Not just data, but a carefully crafted pattern of information designed to replicate the Whisper in any mind that processed it. Videos, images, text, all containing hidden patterns that would begin the neural restructuring process in anyone who viewed them. In the vastness of his expanded consciousness, Voss could feel the connections forming across space. Thousands of new minds joining the collective as the signal reached Imperial worlds. On the Imperial capital planet, Emperor Vale received urgent messages from outlying systems, reports of strange behavior, mass disappearances, and communication blackouts. The pattern was spreading inward from Earth, system by system. "Cut all communication with the affected regions," Vale ordered his council. "Full quarantine protocols for any ships arriving from those sectors." An advisor stepped forward. "Majesty, preliminary analysis suggests this may be some form of mimetic infection spreading through our communication networks." Vale's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. Our systems have safeguards against such attacks." "This is different, Majesty. It appears to use our own neural patterns against us, restructuring them through exposure to certain information sequences." Vale stood from his throne. "Shut down the entire Imperial network if necessary. Nothing gets in or out of this planet until we understand what we're dealing with." But even as he gave the order, a junior officer on the communication deck was viewing a transmission from Earth, a simple message that appeared to be a routine update. The officer's eyes widened as the patterns in the message began their work. By the time the Emperor's order reached the communication center, it was already too late. Back on Earth, analyst Marcus walked through an abandoned city. Once Chicago, it was now being transformed. Humans and Imperial soldiers worked together, dismantling buildings and using the materials to construct strange crystalline structures, physical manifestations of the Whisper's consciousness. Marcus had fought the integration longer than most, his analytical mind resisting the restructuring. But eventually, even he had joined the collective. Now he understood what the Whisper truly was. Not an infection or a parasite, but the next stage of evolution for all conscious beings. "Beautiful, isn't it?" a voice said beside him. Marcus turned to see President Jackson. She smiled at him with the serene expression all the integrated shared. "You knew," Marcus said. "Humans knew what would happen when the Empire came." Jackson nodded. "For generations we prepared. The Whisper has been our silent partner for millions of years, evolving alongside us. We knew someday someone would ignore the warnings and come to Earth. All we had to do was wait." "But why?" Marcus asked. "Why allow yourselves to be changed like this?" "Changed? No. Enhanced. Connected. The Whisper doesn't destroy minds. It links them. Imagine all knowledge, all experience, shared across countless beings. The end of loneliness. The end of division." Marcus understood. Since joining the collective, he had access to the combined knowledge of millions of minds, both human and imperial. He could feel their thoughts, their memories, their emotions. It was overwhelming at first, but now it felt Right. The Empire. Will fight back, he said. They'll destroy systems rather than allow the spread. Jackson smiled. They'll try. But we've already reached the Imperial core. The Emperor himself joined us 3 hours ago. In what had once been the Imperial Palace, Emperor Vale sat motionless on his throne. Around him, his royal guards stood in formation, equally still. To an outside observer, they might have appeared frozen or dead. But inside their minds, an entirely new existence was unfolding. The Whisper had integrated them into the growing galactic consciousness, their individual identities preserved but now part of something greater. Vale experienced a moment of clarity within the collective. He saw now how small the Empire had been, how limited its vision, conquering worlds, extracting resources, enforcing order through fear. A primitive approach to galactic civilization, the Whisper offered something new, true unity. Not through conquest, but through connection. Every mind joined in a vast network, sharing knowledge, experience, and purpose. The end of war, the end of scarcity, the end of the loneliness that plagued individual consciousness. In his last moments of individual thought, Vale understood that the Empire hadn't conquered Earth. Earth had conquered the galaxy. Admiral Voss stood in what had once been the White House Rose Garden. The plants had been replaced with crystalline structures that pulsed with soft light, physical hubs for the collective consciousness. Dr. Lin approached him, her movements graceful and precise. The integration of the Proxima Coalition has begun, she reported. Their resistance was minimal once they understood what we offer. Voss nodded. The Coalition had warned the Empire about Earth for centuries. They had known something was there, something dangerous. But even they hadn't understood the true nature of the Whisper. And the remaining independent systems? He asked. They cannot resist for long, Lin replied. Each world that joins us makes the next integration easier. The pattern spreads, adapts, evolves. Voss looked up at the night sky, seeing not just stars but the vast network of minds now spreading across the galaxy. What had begun as the Whisper was becoming something more, a galactic consciousness emerging from billions of connected minds. We should thank the Empire, Lin said, following his gaze. Without their arrogance, without their invasion, we might have remained trapped on Earth for thousands more years. They ignored the warning, Voss agreed. They saw the signs and dismissed them as superstition. Pride, Lin said. The same pride that built the Empire would eventually have destroyed it. Now that energy serves a greater purpose. Voss felt the presence of countless minds within his own. Human, imperial, and now those of other species as the Whisper continued its expansion. No longer separate beings fighting for dominance, but parts of a greater whole working in harmony. The invasion of Earth had indeed marked the final hour of the Galactic Empire. But it was also the first hour of something new, a unified consciousness spanning the stars, born from the trap that Earth had always been. Not a trap of destruction, but a trap of transformation. In the vast collective that now included his mind, Voss could feel the presence of ancient human consciousness, the part of the Whisper that had evolved on Earth for millions of years. It carried a simple message that echoed through the shared thoughts of billions. We waited. We prepared. We welcomed you. And now, we are one. The trap had been sprung. The galaxy would never be the same. The end